Infotech Research Group is a partner organization of ours. They are leading the market in doing the research necessary for us to understand what it takes to implement IT effectively. He's going to be talking to us about our IT strategy and the methodologies we use for designing IT strategies inside your organizations. So when you're ready, reach back out to us. Omar, the floor is yours.
I'm Omar Hannon. I'm the manager of diagnostic programs at Infotech Research Group. And a little bit about myself before we get into the history of Infotech. I've been with Infotech for 18 years in a bunch of different roles in consulting, security consulting, sales, operations, finance, research, and for the last 4 years or so on the diagnostics team as part of our innovation division. The focus of today's talk will be around one of our main diagnostic programs called Cio Business Vision. I'll tell you about that as we go. But you'll hear the word diagnostic a lot, and that's what we do. That's one of the things that we do. I grew up in the Caribbean, actually. I grew up in Trinidad. I lived there until I was about 17, so it's always nice to come back to the region. And I'm still not accustomed to the winters for sure. But we'll see. I don't think that ever happens. So for today, we'll do a little introduction about Infotech. We'll talk a little bit about strategy and our methodology for developing and implementing an IT strategy. The big focus there is going to be on IT business alignment, and again, that's been the theme in the T-Tech room for the conference. But IT business alignment and making sure that you're not two separate units between IT and the business, but that you're working in the same direction, right? We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Cio Business Vision Diagnostic, and I hope to have a little bit of time at the end to open it up to questions as well. It's supposed to be an interactive session, so don't feel like you have to hold your questions till the end. Just, raise your hand and we'll take questions as well. So, Infotech. We're an IT research and consulting firm. We're headquartered in London, Ontario, Canada, sort of halfway between Toronto and Detroit. And we're about 500 employees right now. This is our 20th year in business. And our main head office is in London. We have a large office in Toronto and then a small satellite office in Las Vegas. We're one of the fastest growing IT research firms in the world, and we're proud to be located in Canada, and we're proud to have the business history that we do. We have members around the world, mostly in the US and the Caribbean and Europe. And our goal is basically to provide better research than anyone else. There are many research firms in the world. There are many, your Gartners, Forresters, Gigas, all those. What we try to do is be a little more practical and tactical in our research. So we try to make sure that we don't just give you high-level advice, but that we give you tools, templates, resources that you can actually use to execute projects from beginning to end. Right? We want to show you sort of a measurable amount of value when you become an Infotech customer. So we're all in business for being in business. So when we talk renewal, that's not a big discussion because you've had so much value from what you've done. It's an easy decision. Right? So that's our sort of model. A little bit about our methodology. And this is a COVID-5 framework that we've used at Infotech, and we've bolstered a little bit of it with some of our own topics. But if you look at the sort of periodic table that's out there, these are the main focus areas that we cover at Infotech. You'll notice that the general theme, this is broken out here, but the general theme is we want to help people manage their processes better, manage their people better, and manage their technology better. So those are the three big groupings that are listed there. We use COVID-5 as a framework for a lot of our research. Some of you might be more familiar with ITEL. It's similar vein. We use it as the framework for our research so that it guides a little bit what we're doing, what we're talking about. Right? We do have clients around the world, again, mostly in the US and the Caribbean and Europe. And here's an example of a few of the clients that we do have. What we help these clients do is improve their core IT processes. We fundamentally believe that the way to leave a lasting impact in an organization is to help them improve their core IT processes. Yes, we'll help you with an individual project that you're doing and help you take that through from beginning to end as well. But to improve your overall IT service, IT department, we want to improve your IT processes. We want to leave you with tools, templates, and resources to get your technology projects done. And we want to develop your IT leadership, right, to make sure that they have the skills and the abilities and the training to lead the IT team of the future. And we want to build data-driven IT strategies. So that's going to be, again, the focus of what we're talking about today. But when we say data-driven, we mean we don't want people to just make things up or feel or think they know stuff. We want you to prove it with numbers and let the data guide you when you're making decisions. Don't get me wrong, you need a little bit of intuition as well, right, for sure. But your decisions should at least be rooted or grounded in real data, right? So throughout that, we have a series of systematic process to continuously help you improve your IT department. We'll show you that in a second. Throughout the world, we've partnered with organizations like T-Tech, and they are our feet on the ground, right? They are here in Jamaica. You can reach out to them. We've selected partners that, for a very strategic reason, for that can be a good face for Infotech, and also bring value to us as well in terms of their expertise. So a lot of times you'll see, if you work with T-Tech on an engagement, you might see that bottom logo there that says powered by Infotech if they're using one of our mechanisms or a piece of our research. Okay. So I know I'm in a challenging role here because everyone just had lunch, so I figured I'd start things off with a little bit of an activity that'll get us up and moving around a little bit. So sorry if you just had lunch and you just want to settle in. But I'm gonna try to give this a go because it is a good physical representation of what a challenge is in developing an IT strategy, right? So I'm not going to preface it too much. We're going to do the activity. We'll debrief it after, and that's where we'll talk about what some of the challenges were. So for now, I'm going to number you off, and I'm just looking at the numbers in the room and see how we're going to do this. I'm going to build, let's start with 4 teams and we'll see how it goes from there. So I'm going to count you off 1 through 4 and the teams will have to shuffle around a little bit, okay? So you're building a patchwork quilt. You guys are building a quilt, you're building a wall, same thing, you could call it a wall too, it doesn't matter. Right? Now, you're going to use the materials in front of you to build that. But I'm going to give you instructions that lets you know how you build it. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to give the instructions to each team because it's a little different. But once I do that, I'll officially say the word go, right? And that's our start time. So don't build before you hear the word go, right? And once I say the word go, you can no longer speak to anyone else on your team. Okay? You're just going to follow your instructions and do what you need to do. What I saw happen, for sure, meant that, read your cards again, because someone's not, or a couple people aren't doing their role. And that is the only reason. Your pattern was right before, I think, but the only reason was I saw like 3 or 4 people moving them around, and I know it's only one person that's supposed to ever touch them. What were your overall impressions with the activity? Did you like it? What did you find challenging about it? Just overall impressions. Anyone? Sure. Anyone else?
You have to like one instruction and you don't, everybody
So we're yeah. So we're hearing things like one set of instructions. Everyone has to be on the same page. Everyone has to work on a team. As a team. The ability to communicate, which I took away from you. Yes, I know. Yeah. Yeah. That was mean.
But you can't have a builder who expect the other person's not to be able to work along with the builder.
That's right. Yeah. Even though you're not the builder, you're not physically putting the things on there, you still have a role to play. And in fact, if you don't play your role, your team will fail the challenge, right? Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you guys very much for partaking in that activity. And it's always a favorite of mine. So all those people on the teams that were the builder, who were the builders? Okay. How did you all feel? What sort of challenges did you have?
I couldn't get my materials to do my building. Actually, it was just one of me and so many of them, and they all bombarded me for the resources.
Right.
And I couldn't get to do what I need to do or coordinate with them to say we have to come to accomplish this.
Sure.
Well,
Anyone else?
I think I was able to signal that nobody touches a bag from me in some sort of a
Right.
yeah. But the challenge was every time I tried building something, somebody kept banging their finger like, don't do that. So there was great confusion at some point in time. I said, what am I supposed to build a wall here? Yes. So we got it.
Okay, awesome. Anyone else? Any other builders? What some challenges did you have?
I wasn't a builder, but
Sure.
observation was that the builder didn't have instructions. So if the builder did not take charge, the team was just all over the builder.
Right. Right. They were trying to do their own thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are basically following instructions they had on the sheets.
Right.
So I thought I don't know what's the rationale behind it, but I wondered if the builder needed some instructions.
Yeah. All they were told is that they're the builder and no one else is to touch any of the bricks. That was that instruction. So one person on your team alone was told they had to build everything and no one else could touch anything. But of course, all of your instructions had to be fulfilled for your structure to be done at the end, right? People that had a card that said they had to take all of one color and not have it be allowed anywhere at all in the system. Who are those people? Yeah. How did you guys feel? How did that make you? How did you accomplish that?
Well, nice. We built the quilt. It was the red and the green. So as soon as we reached the green, I literally grabbed all of them and arrested them. So that's
Right. What was your team's reaction when you did that?
some persons initially wanted it, but I
Right.
insisted.
Right.
So there was a bit of resistance.
Sure. Anyone else?
I didn't have much resistance because early on I decided taking them off.
Well, resistance is futile. Very good. So obviously the tie-in here is between strategy and goal, right? So you all had the same goal, and what you didn't have was a strategy to build that out, right? You had instructions, and each team was very siloed in their set of instructions, much like a company, much like any organization. They understand what the goal is, and sometimes they feel that their team or divisions or department's goal might even appear to be in conflict with another team. Did anyone ever feel that your goal or someone else on your team was actually hurting?
Yes.
Yeah, was actually hurting your chances. In reality, you all had instructions that would actually fit together to allow you to make one cohesive product, right? What you were missing, and I obviously engineered this for a purpose because I took away your ability to speak. But what you were missing is the ability to communicate. Right, absolutely. And you figured out some ways. Even with that, you figured out some ways to gesture and make things known, right? Even without communication, builders were the only people building stuff, right? So you still figured out some ways. That's what we're trying to get people to understand in the organization. And it's not just about IT, it's the whole organization, but we use IT as we're an IT research company, that's the influence we have, so we ask IT to lead this, right? Or lead this initiative. And to have people realize that we are all on the same team, we are going for the same goal. And once you get that mindset that, yeah, accounting or whoever that other department is, they're not just taking all the green bricks because they're trying to be mean. That's actually trying to help your organization succeed. So how do you fit all that stuff together, right? The difference between a strategy and a goal, and for me, this always really highlights the importance of communication. So here's the interesting question. If you had a chance to do it again, and I said to everyone that you can speak, do you think you'd do it better, quicker, faster? So I give that challenge to my JA students as a JA volunteer, right? And we do both ways. And I gotta tell you, it doesn't always work out better, quicker, faster when you can speak. It's a lot louder. But that's the danger too, right? So there's not just one silver bullet as the answer. Well, if I could have spoken, we could have done this in 2 minutes and we would have finished. You would have, maybe, but it doesn't always work that way, right? So let's talk about IT strategy. What does it mean to be strategic, right? It's this buzzword. Most people know what it is. What does it mean to be strategic? What should an effective IT strategy be? What should it have? Anyone?
Metrics, timeline, goal.
Goals, metrics, timelines, absolutely. Anything else? I knew your classic consulting bit, right? What do you think the answer is? What broad elements do you think should be included? So, sorry?
Business drivers.
Business drivers, absolutely. Metrics, timeline, all those things, right? I'm starting at a level a little bit higher than those are real meat technical things. I'm just a little bit above that right now, and it's got to be forward thinking. So it's got to be most strategies that we help our members with, we'd like them to focus on the next 1, 3, and 5 years. When I say those things, I always have to really highlight to people that it does not mean that 4 years from now, if you're into your 5-year strategy, you have to do that thing you built 4 years ago. These are all processes. They're not outcomes. They're not defined things. Life is dynamic. Business is dynamic. So you always have to be looking at this stuff because it does change. And that's okay, right? Even a goal changing is okay, right? Some people go, well, I never achieved that goal. Okay, but did it morph into something else because of other changes? Then that's okay. So it's got to be looking forward, but it's got to be dynamic. It's got to be always changing. But you need something to focus you, right? It's got to be proactive. So it's got to be something that's based on your actions, that's something that you do, and something that you have a vested interest in and that you lead. It's got to be aligned with the business. So this is going to be the focus of the session, the focus of the diagnostic I'm going to talk about, the Cio Business Vision. This is, all the other parts make sense. This makes sense too, but this is part that I feel, at least Infotech members struggle. Hey, we need to build an IT strategy. Okay, let's get all the IT people in the room and let's come up with a strategy. What's wrong with that? Yeah, right? The business isn't involved, right? So, and IT doesn't know that that's wrong. What they see is indicators. So they see things like if you're an IT professional and you're hearing things like, well, the business doesn't know anything about IT. The business doesn't know what we do. The business doesn't approve my projects, right? If you're hearing those sorts of things, they could be legit things because of financial reasons or all those things. They could also be because you're not working on the things that the business thinks are important, right? Or you're not aligned with the business and the business goals. So that's the key and the focus of what I'm going to show you in a bit. Be aspirational. Think of something really big that you want to accomplish, right? Think of, your goals and your IT strategy should not be just to keep the lights on, right? It should be to improve things. It should be to drive success, and it could move up from that. It could be to optimize processes. It could be to create new products. It could be to eventually become a revenue generator. All those sorts of things, right? So a typical. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Yep.
Where would commitment of sources and also you mentioned something about change earlier, as in it should be something that you can change, but and I think it's about that it should be something that should be difficult to change.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's tough when you have like a 5-year strategy, right? Because in year 3, things may have changed enough in your business or in the world that you should change stuff, right? So what I'm saying is you definitely need to have a strategy, and it is doctrine. It's what you're doing, but be aware that if you need to address things, you can, right? For sure. The resourcing and the things that you're talking about, the technical things that you're talking about, are elements are more technical elements of the strategy for sure. And today's focus is a little more on the business alignment piece of it, but you'll see a little bit bits and pieces of that. So a typical IT strategy contains mostly the following things, right? Your summary of your current state. I don't know if everyone contains that, but I really believe everyone should do that, because that's your benchmark. That's your snapshot in time as to what things are like right now. And that's what you're going to use to measure your success. Right? You take a snapshot in time as to what things are like right now, you make your strategy, you measure improvements, and then you compare it against your benchmark. And you show the value of IT. Right?
So the current state of business?
The business and IT. Yeah. Mostly IT. Right, but you want the next step down is it's a little bit of both. So under current state, it says Cio Business Vision. So that's what the business thinks, right? And I'll show you that in a second. The external environment and internal IT. So sort of all of those things. Your current state is mapping all of those things. What your internal IT process landscape look like? What's happening out there in your world, in the industry, and also how does the business feel about IT? So those 3 sort of things put together to form your current state. Summary of your target state, right? So I know where we're at, I know where we want to be, and of course the next step is how do you get from A to B, right? This makes so much sense when you say it, and it just sounds like, why do you need to say it? The thing that people do too soon is they try to go straight into solution, right? They try to go straight to the action piece or the solution piece, and they miss really important steps, and those steps are valuable because they bring other things to light. So spend the effort and the time and the resources to document your current state and to document clearly your target state. And only then, after those 2 steps, start working on how you bridge that gap, right? So you've got your high-level strategy, you've got where you want to be, and now you're getting down to your projects and initiatives that are going to get you there, and all the way down to your daily tasks, right? Because strategy, again, is not a thing that you just do and you close this binder that you built and it looks real pretty and you put it away somewhere. It's a thing that should drive your daily tasks, right? So a little more detail here on the steps. Identify your business goals, the environment, and the objectives, right? So you really should not be looking at developing an IT strategy without really involving your business, without really talking to them and understanding what their goals are, right? It just makes sense. We don't do IT for the sake of IT. We do IT to drive the business forward. So we need the business involved when we're making our decisions, right? Assess the current IT performance. Sorry.
Most businesses want goal, increase revenue or increase profits.
Right. Yeah, and when
Universal goal.
absolutely, 100%. And when you're getting to that, identifying business goals, I sometimes I'm going broad, sometimes I'm going specific, right? That one's specific. So that one's like, What are your initiatives for the next year? Is it sales focused initiatives? It is operations focused initiatives. You'll understand more exactly what I mean when I show you the breakdown of their CIO business vision. But I'm getting a little narrow in scope there. Assess your current IT business performance, establish your desired state, determine the gap, and then create your roadmap, right? And be willing to alter that roadmap, be willing to alter the goals, be willing to alter all of this really. It's the difference between a tool and a process, or a tool and a technique, right? A tool is something you purchase or you buy, and you're going to reach for that tool every time you need to do that job, right? It's not a task. It's the difference between a tool and a task. It's not a task. A task, if I'm done this task, I can close this book and I can put it away because I'm done with it, right? And I don't need to look at it anymore. A tool I'm going to reach back for every time I need to do that job. So when you look at an IT strategy, think tool versus task. It's a tool that you should use at all times managing your business. It is not a task, because too many people spend a lot of money to create a brilliant, shiny looking IT strategy and then put it away and don't look at it, and then a year from now they go, hey, remember that thing we did? Did we ever reach any of those things that we do? How do we, and they look at it and they look back, right? But it's not something that you look back on, it's something that drives your actions every day, because it's a tool you use every day. So I'm going to go into the CIO business vision and talk a little bit about what that is and why we feel that's an important part of building your IT strategy. And here's why that's an important part. What we try to do is to say establish performance metrics, so establish your baseline, your benchmark, build a data-driven IT strategy, create your roadmap, manage your processes, use best practices, leverage experience, and then measure year-over-year improvement. That's really fast and broad, but the piece I'm really focusing on is step 1 and 2 here, where how do you measure where you're at right now, and how do you build that strategy? Okay. So I've used this term diagnostic a lot today. What is a diagnostic? Diagnostics are a series of survey-based tools, systematic tools that we've created to help IT leaders collect and act on feedback. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. When you're making decisions, like when you're building your IT strategy, we want to make sure that you're building that strategy based on real data, and that you're not flying blind, and that you're not just getting a bunch of IT leaders in a room and trying to come up with answers, right? That you're involving the business. So you'll hear the term data-driven IT strategy, data-driven research. That's sort of our mission. We want to make sure that when you're building something, most importantly, when you're building your IT strategy, let's build that based on real data. There are a number of different diagnostics. We're going to focus on CIO Business Vision, which is actually the top one that helps us measure and manage IT performance. But there are different diagnostics that focus on applications or security or project management. They're just out there, and you can talk to TTech if you want to learn more about those. So what is the CIO Business Vision? It's a stakeholder management survey. So it's a survey-based tool that goes out to your key stakeholders in the business, your VPs, your directors, your managers, of all the different departments or divisions that you might have. And we ask them, first of all, how satisfied they are with the services they receive from IT. 1 to 10 scale, how satisfied are they, right? Because that's our benchmark. Then we drill down into all of the core services that IT provides to that group, to the business, sorry. And we get them to comment on their satisfaction with each one of those core services as well. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is a sample report. So it's a 15-minute survey that we ask your business leaders to do, and this is the report that it produces for us at the end. And I'm going to go through a couple pages of this report to show you how we use it to make decisions and talk about what the questions are like and things like that. But that's the idea, right? It's actually, I always find it funny how simple it is, the core of what the idea is. Hey, you don't know what those people think. Yep, so you should ask them. That's it. But asking them the right questions at the right time in the right way, producing the right report, using that data to drive an aligned strategy, that's the value. Right? So Cio Business Vision, it goes out to your key stakeholders in the business. In the sample, in this report, we'll show you the completion rate, things like that. But let me show you some of the meat of the report. This is a first page with some real data on it, right? So up on the top left, you'll see your overall score for satisfaction and your overall score for value. This is what the business thinks. This is what your business leaders think, your VPs, directors, and managers of your organization. So just to give you an idea of how the questions are written, the first question on the survey is, considering all factors on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with the services you receive from IT? We take the average of that 1 to 10 scale ranking, and that's what turns into the 72% that you see. So that's your benchmark. That's your baseline. Just so you know, I'm going to jump right to the end before I come back to the middle. What we're going to do, you'll see built in this year versus last year, because what we're going to do is say, you've got this awesome report with a bunch of great data to drive a strategy and make change and make improvements, and then a year from now, do the survey again. And we'll build in a year-over-year comparison so we can show how your actions have actually improved satisfaction levels in the organization. Because we want to give you that measurable result, that measurable impact on your business of working with Infotech and CTech, right? I'm going to skip a few things on here. We use the Net Promoter Model to give it a little more context, and then to those numbers above. If anyone really has a question of what that is or how it works, I'll go into that. But the other big piece I want to cover here is the core services list on the right-hand side. So these are the list of core services we ask questions about. This is like sort of like section headings in the survey, right? In the survey, you'll have a few questions on reporting, a few questions on projects, network. And what we ask your participants to do is two things. We ask them to tell us how satisfied they are with each one of these services, and then we ask them, the business, to tell us to rank these services in order of importance to them. So here's how we use that to make recommendations to IT, right? We say, let's compare these two columns. We're not going to tell you that you should work on the thing that people are least satisfied with. We're going to look at the relationship between those two columns. In the ideal world, the things that are the most important to people should be the highest in satisfaction. Because as a consultant, that'll tell us that you're focusing your resources in the right areas. Right? Because every company is different. In here, what we want to look for is, where is there misalignment there? Where is there something that's ranked really high in importance, but scoring really low in satisfaction? Because when it's high in importance and low in satisfaction, here's what people are telling you. Hey, this thing is really important to us, and we don't do a good job at it. So that combination makes it something we recommend you fix. Right? You're making a data-driven decision. This is really important to the business. They don't think we do a good job of it. These things are important to the business. They don't think we do a good job of it. So you're looking for that alignment. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Great. I know I didn't touch a lot on this page. Any questions on anything else up here that you want to see?
Omar, you're going through that a while ago. What popped to my mind is that for those of us in here who are on the IT side of the business, it's almost this hidden soldier. You know, you're in the background, in the trenches, doing the work. But as long as you're keeping the lights on, nobody really cares.
Right.
Right?
Right.
The instant something breaks,
Yeah.
that's when all of a sudden you are the most important guy in the room and they call you. So I'm kind of wondering that, is it a situation where if something is working great,
Yep.
right, and they're happy with it, then all of a sudden it doesn't seem to be that important anymore
Right.
because it's going great
Yeah.
until the date breaks.
You're right, and you've hit on something that's inherent to inherent problem with all surveys, right? What we're measuring is perception.
Right.
We're measuring the perception of your key stakeholders in the business and how they feel. And the truth is, their perception is important. the perception of your CEO, of your C-suite executives or your VPs, that's important. If hopefully all your problems are just perception and they're not real, because then your answer is just communication, and you're good, and you don't have anything really, big or important to fix, right? But we do want to document perception. And the other thing I'll say to that is, I'm making these statements, I'm making these broad statements like this is the thing you should fix. You do a results call, right? So when you get this data about your own organization, you do a results call with TTAC. And what they'll do is they'll interpret the data, they'll make some recommendations, but what they do really well is they'll ask you more questions, right? And this is going to point you in the direction, well, I should look at this, or I should look at this, but not necessarily that that's the thing I have to work on. This is going to give you the direction to look a little deeper, perhaps, right? Maybe you know the answer because one of these things are small. Maybe you just had an outage and people ranked network really low because it just happened. But maybe that was the first time in 15 years. So what this is missing is business context, which we get when we do the results call and we ask a lot more questions before we make solid recommendations on what you should or shouldn't do. This page is my favorite. It's the IT Capacity Scorecard. So in general, this page is going to tell us, again, this is feedback from your business stakeholders, your VPs, directors, and managers. Do your business leaders feel that IT has the resources to meet the business needs? Is there more demand for IT resources? And if so, specifically, where is that demand? So we start with these sliding scales, right, that measure capacity, dependency, and shadow IT. And we plot you along those scales. What are your people telling us? Does your business feel constrained because of a lack of IT capacity from reaching their business goals? Does your business feel dependent on IT in terms of reaching their business goals? Sometimes are they so constrained and so dependent that they're actually going outside of IT to try to solve their technological problems or needs, right? So we measure those things. This is what I encourage our members to take with you when you're going in resourcing meetings, right? When you're going in to meet with your CEO or your CFO, this is what's going to have the potential to change the nature of your discussions when you're talking about resourcing. Instead of saying, IT needs this new thing. We need to buy this new thing because it's this new IT thing and it's really cool and I'm a IT geek and we need the newest thing. Versus, so look, the business is telling us that they actually can't meet their business goals because of the lack of IT resources. In fact, they're really dependent on us and sometimes they actually have to go outside of us to get the services that they need. So I need this new thing that's going to fulfill that business need, right? It's the same ask, but framed differently, and that's how you want to frame those asks when you're, people also, well, I don't get the approval for things. Make sure you're making that ask as a business case, right? Not just IT wants. Does that make sense? And this gives you the data to do that, right? Which is kind of nice. It's not me saying it, it's the business saying it. I'm just going to help you and help the business. Over on the left here, we show you, this is a breakdown of this same data by department. So we start giving you slices of the data by department because we want to show you if there's a problem overall, but also if there's a problem that's specific to a particular department. Okay? I'll spend a little time to talk about projects versus work orders because we dive in here and this, I do results calls for these and they tend to be an area that always shows up as an issue. So in terms of projects, we ask two things. We ask, how satisfied are you with projects? And, how satisfied are you with the capacity of IT to do projects and the value of the projects they do? So think of it this way. Capacity really measures, do we do enough of these? Value really measures the quality of the output, right? Think of it that way. So capacity, do we do enough? Value, what's the quality of it? And because we measured those two things separately, it gives us the opportunity, if something's wrong, to try to see where it's wrong. This data doesn't show it, but I'll share with you what we normally see. And I say what we normally see because we've done thousands of these surveys, so we now sit on a mountain of data that we can look at and look at trends, right? And what we normally see is a very low capacity score. normally in the 60s, and a higher value score, normally in the mid to high 70s. So a low capacity score, hey, we're not doing enough, and a mid-range to high. But when we do them, we do okay, right? When you see that, what that lets us look at is, so basically project portfolio management, right? How do you decide which projects, I would ask this client or that client, how do you decide which projects you do, which projects you don't do? Do you have a defined framework for how you decide that? Does that framework align with the business and the business strategy and your IT strategy? How do you decide what you do and what you don't do as an IT project? It could be a pure resourcing number. It could be you don't have enough people to do the amount of projects that will satisfy the business, or it could be you're doing the wrong project. So we want to figure that out, right? So we look at project portfolio management, we'll look at capacity to try to figure that out. If it's the other way around, if you're doing enough, but your value score is really low, then we're probably going to recommend you look a little deeper at something like project management itself. What's your methodology for actually executing projects, right? Is that mature? Do you have a defined framework? Do you actually have project managers in the organization? Do you have BAs in your organization? We're going to ask all those different types of questions, right? So that's how the data on these sheets drives us to ask different questions and really dig into defining the problem for our members. Does that make sense? I didn't touch on this on the first page, but it's showing up in a couple more places, so I'll just really briefly talk about these little individuals here, the Net Promoter Model. So the question is, how satisfied are you with IT's capacity to deliver projects, right? And that's 1 to 10 scale, that's the number, that's the average. These little individuals here, there are 10 of them, and they represent 10% groupings of people that responded to that question. So anyone in red represents a 10% grouping that responded to that question with a score between 1 and 6. So 10, 20, 30, 40% of people that responded to that question gave you a score between 1 and 6. However, 60% of people that responded to this question responded with a score between 8 and 10. So we're just giving you the breakdown or the drill down into what that number is made up in to give you a little more context. And that's what we're using the Net Promoter Model to do. Yellows are you're in between, right? 6 or 7, I think is what it is. And this plus or minus score is just the difference between your positive respondents and your negative. The percentage difference between your positive respondents and your negative responses. So if you had more reds than greens, this would be a negative red number. We show you some written feedback as well, just a couple questions that give you some context instead of just numbers, right? Anonymous feedback, and we show you a satisfaction by department. So we show you sort of a dashboard view of all the different departments that you had take this survey and what their main scores were, right? So you can see it all on one page and you can prioritize which departments you might want to look at first. Any questions so far about the Cio Business Vision sample report?
Another question, Omar, but what about customers? Well, there's a question there. And yes, sir, over there.
I was just asking about benchmarking. If an organization doesn't have any benchmark, what would be Infotech's recommendation as to where they could start or what should start?
Yeah. That's exactly why we encourage people to start with this, to actually set a benchmark. So take a snapshot in time as to where you're at by doing diagnostic. All diagnostics set a benchmark.
Okay, so this tool could be used to actually set a benchmark.
That's right. This is the first step. Exactly right. This is what we'd ask you to do first. So if someone said to Infotech, or T-Tech, I want to come and do an IT strategy, or I want to learn how to do a strategy, the first thing we're going to say is, great, so let's set a benchmark and see where you're at right now and collect some data from the business so that we make sure when we build this strategy, we'll build in the fact that it's aligned with the business and the business goals. How are we going to do that? We're going to do this project first.
So you
Yeah.
we said earlier. So set that as a baseline, and we will help you to be compared against other industries within the Caribbean. We have the systems for the Caribbean, and can help you in your organization to prove that you're understanding IT. You're never invest.
Right. Very good. Do you see how something like this might be valuable in terms of your decision-making progress or in terms of building an IT strategy that's better aligned with the business?
Yeah, Omar, so one comments we got from a customer who we helped with this process was when they came back to us and shared with Marcel and I that they were able to use just about, I think, this slide and the departments, the key departments for their organization.
Right.
I know what you said, the ultimate universal goal is profit, but you can make profit by selling financial services, or I can make profit by selling IT services. So it all depends on where investment goes in the organization. But they came back to us and said, guys, this thing was fantastic. I actually got the board to double the IT budget just because what he said, he said, look guys, realize that this went out to the entire leadership organization. They're the ones that set everything. So when you brought back to present to them, he said, you're all unhappy right here. You're saying that this is bad, but the only way to fix this is by doing these 3 things right here, which I have in my report. And he was presenting it to the executive committee, which then he then had to present to the board, and he got, and team members wondered what did he do to get them to increase spend, which I've been trying to do for years. And he said, this document.
Yeah, it's the difference between saying, take my word for it,
Yeah.
or here's some proof with some data. I went
Right.
out and I spent the effort and I used a systematic, repeatable process that we can measure and deliver on every year, right? As opposed to saying, no, trust me, I've heard, I've talked, trust me. That's
Yeah,
the,
that's
yeah,
different,
yeah. What drives business satisfaction? Which actual core service has the biggest impact in terms of business satisfaction, right? Policies is number 8. Infrastructure is, sorry, not number 8, 8%. There's no number 8. Infrastructure is at 14%, at a tie with applications. Innovation is actually 16% correlation. So even though the business needs to make sure that you're doing stuff well, that your infrastructure, for example, is not down all the time, they rank innovation closer to, tie innovation closer to satisfaction than infrastructure. I just want to clarify what that means is infrastructure and network and those things, those are baselines. Those are table stakes. You know,
Much worse.
innovation and the things that come after this don't matter if
That doesn't work.
that doesn't work. Those are table stakes. So it doesn't mean that they're more important and you should prioritize innovation over infrastructure if your infrastructure is failing. That's not what we're saying at all, right? So we have 2 more left. And I keep saying this and I keep trying to figure out a way to give these away. And I've heard one answer. So let's go with, what do you think is 20% correlated?
Services.
Okay. I went the wrong way. It's relationship management. It's actually managing the relationships and engaging your IT team with the business, right? So again, all those things are insanely important. The service desk is ridiculously important. I have another chart that I didn't bring. Actually, I have it, but it's not in this presentation. That shows sort of at a certain point, investments in certain things start to trail off, right? So when you hit 85% satisfaction levels in things like infrastructure, service desk, spending more money there and making those incremental improvements to go from 88% to 89% gives you less bang for your buck than spending something in relationships or innovation. When you're at that level already, right? When network and infrastructure are already at that 85 and above level, right? The big one is projects. The absolute, according to our data, the absolute number one thing that you could do better that'll drive overall business satisfaction is deliver projects better and increase your project capacity. Someone back there said projects. That's yours.
Come on.
One person said projects. Thank you, sir. Well done.
You're going to use it?
Yeah. The really interesting thing about this is when we look at what people tell us, let's try and articulate this properly. When we look at what people tell us, they don't tell us that projects is the number one most important thing to them. But when we look at the numbers and we compare what you have to improve numbers-wise that has the biggest impact on the satisfaction number, it's projects. So people almost fool themselves a little bit, right? People do pick the things that you're all thinking. They pick service desk, they pick network, they pick all those things as is normally, on average, as more important, right? But according to our data, the number one thing you can improve that'll actually increase your overall satisfaction is projects. And we're all talking about making data-driven decisions, right? So you got to resign yourself to sometimes change your opinion or leave your ego a little bit aside and to trust what the data is telling you and follow that. You've done a CIO Business Vision, you've got some amazing input, you've got some amazing data in your hands. Now what? Now what do you do? Well, again, T-Tech will lead you through a results call, right? So they analyze the data with you. They make sure you understand what the data is telling you. They might ask you a ton more questions and get some additional context, but then they'll also make a few recommendations on how you might actually improve your situation. If they use stuff through Infotech, so this is Infotech's stuff, which T-Tech has access to as well, right? If we have a series of options for you. You can do a do-it-yourself toolkit. Fix your problem yourself with this toolkit. You can do a guided implementation, which is use the toolkit and also talk to an analyst at strategic points. You can do a workshop. If it's something really important and you have to fix it right away and you have to fix it really quick, you can do a workshop or you can even do consulting. And all those things you run through T-Tech. But that's sort of the options you have to fix stuff once you identify your big problem areas. Because our goal, and if you're an Infotech member, if you've seen Infotech stuff, you're probably tired of this chart, but our goal is to help identify where you are on this scale right now, your current state, right? Are you in that unstable firefighter mode where things are breaking and you're running after things and you're reactive? Our goal is to help you improve and move up the rungs of this to where you climb into trusted operator, business partner, innovator, right? Not that every single person has to have a goal of that. Maybe your goal is anywhere up here, but your goal is definitely not one of the bottom two.